Hello and welcome to Annie's Crochet Striped Afghan Club video tutorial for kit number 3. I'm Lena Skvagersson and I'm excited to be your guide as you learn new skills while we make this beautiful stitch sampler Afghan one stripe at a time. Stripes 7, 8, and 9 are stunning and I know that we're going to have a great time as we learn them together. I am thrilled to have you join me for these next 3 stripes. They are using the stitches and techniques that we have already learned as well as some new ones. Single crochet, double crochet, treble crochet, and chains. And combined, they will create unique textures and color work that are perfect to add to our Afghan. We will build on what you learned in the first 2 kits and explore new ways to use our stitches and learn some helpful tips along the way. Before we begin crocheting, let's review the materials included in the kit and items that you will need to have on hand. In this kit, you received Premier Everyday Yarn in the colors Harbor, Spa, and Cappuccino. The cream color we will be using some of in the colorwork stripe. We will use leftovers from the previous stripes. Altogether, it's enough to make stripes 7, 8, and 9. Make sure to always keep your leftovers so that we can use as remnants on some upcoming stripes, as well as to complete the border once we have finished our blanket. You did also receive a new instruction leaflet that covers all 3 stripes. You have your size eye hook, you have the stitch markers, and the yarn needle. You may also need your scissors and the tape measure. Are you ready to begin? Let's get started. Stripe number 7 is a fun way to learn how to mix single crochet with double crochet stitches and to create a nice texture with the name seed stitches. It's really easy and I cannot wait to show you. For stripe 7, we are going to work the ever so popular seed stitch. It's super easy and it gives so much in return. We are working 1 row to establish the pattern, and then we have a row that we're just going to repeat over and over again, and we're going to work a total of 7 rows of this nice textured surface texture. So we ended stripe 6 on a right side row. So for stripe 7, it tells us to switch over to the wrong side. We're going to grab the color Harbor and we will join in the first stitch. So join by putting your hook through, wrap that yarn around your hook, pull through and make sure you grab your working yarn and just pull through the stitch. And then we're going to chain 1 and then we're going to work a single crochet in the first stitch here. So go into the first stitch, make sure your tails are tightened here at the side, and then work a single crochet. And now the repetition with the bracket starts. It says to work a double in the next single, a single in the next, and repeat that. So that means that we're going to do double, single, double, single, double, single, and so on. So follow me here now. We're doing a double, yarn over, go through both loops of the stitch, pull through, yarn over, go through the first 2, and then yarn over and go through the second 2. Then we're doing a single into next. So you just put your hook through, grab the yarn, and then pull it through both the loops. Then a double crochet. So yarn over and go into the stitch, yarn over, go through first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. So what we're doing here, we're working a short stitch, a tall stitch, short and tall, and this way we're going to create the texture across. If you at any point stop and wonder what you did last and what comes next, you can see the difference if you kind of like take a closer look here at the stitches. You see your single crochet stitches, they just look like a little V here, while your double crochet stitches has the V and then it has these like slanting bars on the side. So if you see a stitch like this, you know that your next one is going to be a single. So single, and then a double, and then a single, and so on. So keep repeating this across, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row when we are ready to start working rows 2 through 7. So I'm coming here now at the end of my first row, so I'm placing a single, and then I have a double to work in the very last stitch. So by this, I have finished my first row, and I will start working row 2, which is the row that we are going to keep repeating. So what we're going to do is that we chain 1, and as always, we don't count that chain 1, but we're working a single crochet here now in the top of this first double crochet. So this whole row now is going to be single in top of doubles and doubles in top of singles. And that's what the pattern tells us in the repetition, to work the next stitch as a double into the single crochet, and then next stitch a double where we work a single crochet, and then we'll work a double, and then we'll work a single. So this is what we're going to repeat across. And again, if you at any point stop and you're wondering what comes next, you can look at the stitch you just made. So this you can see, it's just a little V. So you know it's a single and that your next stitch is supposed to be a double. But you can also look at the stitch below. If you see here now that you have a double coming up, you know that you're supposed to make a single in top of that one. So keep alternating the stitches across and work this until you get to the end of the row, and I'll meet you there. I'm coming towards the end of the row here now. I'm working a single crochet in that double crochet, and then here at the end I have a single crochet, so that's where I place a double crochet to end my row. And with that, I have finished row 2. And this row is what we're going to keep repeating now for rows 3 through 7. We're going to do exactly what we did here now for the last row, which means that we're going to chain 1, and then we are going to put a single in the first double, a double in the single, single in the double, and so on. So keep repeating that for the next 4 rows. And I'll meet you again at the end of row 7, where I'm going to show you that it's time for us to change color and make ourselves ready for the next stripe, number 8. I'm at the end now of row 7, and I'm working a single crochet and then my very last double crochet here at the end of the row. And I'm going through the first 2 loops, and then the pattern tells me to change to spa color. So I'll bring the spa color in, wrap it around my hook, and pull it through both those 2 loops. And then I will tighten these tails a little bit, but I will not cut the color harbor at this point, because I will use it soon again when I start working our stripe 8. So just leave your harbor color here hanging at the side. And before we continue, I'm going to double check the measure here of my seed stitch stripe. I know it's supposed to be 2.5 inches tall, and that's exactly the measurement I get here. So that finishes off stripe 7, and I'm ready to continue with stripe 8. I will show you a cool technique to create color work while only stitching with one color at a time. An easy and ideal method for creating a colorful design. We will combine single crochet with double crochet and chain spaces, and we will chain colors at the end of every row. Let's give it a try. For stripe 8, we are going to have fun working this multicolored checkerboard. The great with this is now we're just going to work one row with each color. So even if we have this multicolored look, we are not going to have to work with any two strands at the same time, but one color for each row. I'm going to show you how. I am ready to start on row 1, and I already have the color spa on my hook. So look at row 1, it sees that you're starting on the right side, which we are, and you start with the chain 1. So as always, don't count that one, but now when it says to work a single in each stitch across, place your first single already in that first stitch. So work a single, and then easy first row here, working a single into each stitch across. So work like this, single crochet in each stitch, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row. I'm coming to the end of row 1, working my last single crochet stitches here. That should be a total of 136 for you across. You could always double count and make sure that you're on track. So now to continue, we flip our work around, and for row 2, it starts with the chain 3. So that's a chain 3 that is instead of a first double crochet. And then it gives us a repetition within the brackets where we're going to work double crochet in each of the next 2 stitches. And then we're going to chain 2 and skip 2. And that's what we're going to repeat across. So let's begin. We're doing a yarn over, not into the first one, but into that second one. We're placing our first double crochet, and then we'll make another one into the next stitch. So 2 double crochets here in a row, plus those chain 3 at the beginning of your row, then chain 2, and then skip 2. And then you're going to start the repetition again. So we're doing 2 double crochets, 1 and 2, and I'm going through both loops on each stitch, looking like that, and then we'll chain 2, skip 2, double crochet in each of next 2, 1 and 2, and chain 2, and skip 2. So keep repeating that across, and I'll meet you again at the end here of row 2. So we're at the end of the row. I'm skipping these last two stitches here, and I then have 3 stitches left on my row, and that's what the pattern tells me. So at this point, I'm going to work a double crochet in each of these last 3 single crochets. So skip 2, and then work double into each one of these 3 stitches. Once I come to the very last one, I'll put my hook through, I'll bring up the yarn, go through the first 2 loops, and then it's time to bring that color harbor back into the game again. So bring it up, do not tighten it too much, like let it follow loosely along the side here of your work, and just change so that we're ready to work our next row 3 with this color. So when you turn around, you're going to see that you have 3 double crochet each side at the beginning and at the end, and then you have spaces with 2 chains, skipping 2 stitches at the bottom, and then 2 double crochets. So that's what your row is going to look like across after you have finished row 2. And now we're going to work row 3, and this is where there starts happening things. So pay attention. We are chaining 1, and then we're going to work a single into the first double crochet. So remember, we don't count the chain as a stitch, but work a single into that very first stitch. Then we're going to chain 2. We're starting a repetition. We're chaining 2, and then we're going to skip these 2 next double crochets, and now we're going to work double crochets in each of these 2 skipped stitches down here on row 1. So it also tells us to read the pattern notes before we do that. So go back to pattern notes and it says that when you work into those skipped stitches 2 rows below, you should work your double crochet around the chain space on previous row as well. So let me show you how that's done. We are going to work a double crochet. So I'm wrapping the yarn around, and then I'm going down into that skipped stitch below, and I'm having my working yarn here in the back so that I also include that chain space when I wrap the yarn around and go through. And I'm going to pull it up a little bit tall here so that I get to the same height that I'm on this row. And then I'm doing a yarn over as always and go through my first 2 loops, then another yarn over and go through my second 2 loops. So that was my first double crochet in the stitch 2 rows below, and as you can see, I also worked it around the chain space. Now I'm going to do one more in the next skipped stitch. So I'm doing another yarn over, go into that stitch below, yarn over and pull the yarn through, pull it up a little bit tall, yarn over and go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2. So that finishes the repetition, and now I'm going to repeat this across. So I'm going to start by chaining 2, skipping these 2 double crochets here, and then work a double crochet in each of these 2 here. So again, yarn over, go into that stitch below, bring the yarn around, and then yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over and through the second 2. Again, yarn over, go into that stitch below, bring through the yarn over, go through first 2 and yarn over and go through second 2. So this is what we're going to repeat all the way across. So we'll do this until we have 3 stitches left on the row, and that's when I meet you again. I'm at the end of the row where I have my last 3 stitches, so I'm going to chain 2, and then I'm going to skip these 2 and work a single crochet here at the top of those chain 3 I have at the beginning of previous row. And in that stitch, I'm going to change to the color cream. That's a remnant that you would have from one of your previous stripes. So let's just now work the single crochet here. So I'm pulling through the yarn, and then I'm bringing in my cream color, and I'm wrapping it around the hook and pulling it through. So at this point, I'm going to fasten off Harbor because I know I'm not going to use that one again for a while. So cut Harbor off, and then we are going to turn around, and we are ready to work row 4. So we'll keep these other strands out of our way as we start working row 4. So for row 4, it tells us to chain 1, and then we're going to work a single into the first single. So that's in the edge stitch we have here at the beginning of the row. And then it tells us to work double crochet in each of the 2 skipped stitches down here on our second row. So right away, we're going to repeat what we did on the previous row. We're going down here and put our double crochets into that stitch and also around the chain space. Go through the first 2 and go through the second 2. So we will do one more. We'll go down here and then bring up the yarn. Make sure you get all your loops or strands, and go through the first 2 and go through the second 2. And same thing here again. That was the start of our repetition, so now we're going to chain 2, and then we're going to skip these 2. So repeat pretty much what we already did on the previous row, going into the stitch, making sure that you go through both those 2 loops at the top of your stitch, and then work a double crochet, and again a double into next, and there you go. We can start seeing how the checkerboard is being formed, and You can see it's just as pretty on both sides since we are working around the chain space. It makes it identical on both sides. So then chain 2, skip these 2, and then work double crochets into these skipped stitches here below. So you're familiar with this now, how to do this. So keep repeating this across, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row. I'm nearing the end of row, and I work into the last 2 skip stitches here at the end, working a double crochet and another double crochet, and then here at the end of the row 4, it tells us to work a single in the last stitch at the same time as we are changing back to the color spa. So wrap spa around your hook and pull through those 2 loops, and that finishes row 4. And we can now turn around. We are on the right side again, and we are ready to work row 5 with spa. We're going to do the exact same thing again here now, where we're starting with a chain 1, and we're working a single into the first single. Then we're going to chain 2. We're going to skip these 2, and now we're going to work double crochets in those 2 skipped stitches below. So we are repeating exactly what we have done before, but we are just alternating the colors we are doing this with. So you should be familiar with the technique now. So keep working in the same pattern as we have done before by chaining 2, skipping 2, and then double crochet into the next 2 below, and work like that across, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row. I'm coming to the end of row 5. I have 3 more stitches, so I will chain 2, skip these 2, and then I'll place a single crochet here in the very last stitch. And again, I go through the first loop, and then I'll bring in the cappuccino collar now. So wrap the cappuccino around the end of here of your hook and pull it through those 2 loops. And for now, we are going to use the spa again later. So again, just let it hang there at the end of the row as you turn your piece around, and you are ready to work row 6. And for row 6, it's another repetition again, where you just chain 1, work a single into the first, and then you're going to work doubles in the 2 stitches below, chain 2 and skip, doubles below, chain 2 and skip. So it's a familiar row. I'm going to get started here together with you, and as we get going, we are going to keep working across in this established texture, and again, I will just work my way, and I'll meet you again at the end of this row. We're at the end here now on row 6, and working my last stitches here, and then putting my last single crochet in the edge stitch. And here, before we start row 7, we change back to our cream color again. And you let cappuccino just hang here because we will use it again. So turn around, keep all your strands in order, and now we are ready to work row 7 with cream. So same thing again, we are doing a chain 1, a single into the first one, and then we are going to chain 2 as we will be skipping these first 2 double crochets, and then work double crochets in the stitches below. So again, a repetition. You just work this way across this row in this established pattern, and I will meet you again at the end of the row where we're going to work our very last row that actually is a little bit different. I'm at the end of the row, and I'm skipping these last 2 double crochets. I have chained 2, and now placing a single in the last stitch, pulling through the cream, but now changing to spa that we have hanging here at the side. So I'm pulling the spa through those 2 last loops, and now we can fasten off the cream, because now we're not going to use that one for a while. We have the color Spa on our hook, and we are ready to work the very last row, row 8 of stripe 8. So we'll chain 1, and we will work a single in the first single. And then we will work double crochets in each of these 2 skipped below, as we've done before. So go down and work doubles into the first one and double into the next one. But now comes the difference here. So now, instead of doing chain 2 and skip 2, we are going to work single crochet in each of these next 2 double crochets. So going into the top of the stitch, go through both 2 loops, you work a single, and you work a single into the next one. Then we will work double below, and another double, and then single in each of the next 2 double crochet stitches. So single, single, and then a double below, and a double below, and then single, single. And you will repeat this across, and I will meet you there. I am now at the end of row 8, and I'm working a single here into the last stitch, pulling through Spa, but now bring Cappuccino back up and pull that through your last pull through. And now we are fastening off Spa. We're not going to use Spa for a little while again. And with this, we have finished row 8. I'm going to take a control measure. At the beginning of the stripe, it tells us the stripe is supposed to be 2.5 inches tall. And if I spread it out here, nice and even, that's exactly the measurements I have here. So I'm ready to go. I can now continue and start working on my stripe 9. Let's go a step further with our crochet stitches by creating crosses across our piece. We will be using treble crochet stitches. They are taller than the double crochet stitches, and we will work them behind each other to cross them, which creates the open lacy look we want for our next stripe on our afghan. Our stripe 9 is a cute little stripe with crossed treble crochet stitches. So we are going to work single crochet, and then we're going to work a row where we are crossing our treble crochets, and then another row of single crochets. I'll show you how to do it. I have the Cappuccino color on my hook, and I'm ready to work row 1 of our cross stitch texture for stripe 9. So it starts with the chain 1. And then, as you can see, it's just a simple single in each stitch across row. So start in your first stitch and make a single, and then just work a single crochet in each stitch across. So a little mindless stitching here to begin with. I'll meet you again at the end of the row. And 136. So that finishes the first row. Turn around. And we are ready to work row 2. Now, this is where all the action is happening, so pay attention. We're starting out with the chain 3, so that just replaces the first double crochet on our row, like an edge double crochet. And then the repetition tells us to skip the next 2 single crochets and work a treble into the next single crochet. So for a treble, you're going to wrap the yarn around your hook 2 times. And then, remember, skip 2, and then put that treble into your next single crochet. Wrap the yarn around and bring it through. So now we have 4 loops on our hook. We wrap the yarn around and go through the first 2, wrap the yarn around and go through the second 2, and then one more time wrap the yarn around and go through the last 2. So that's a treble crochet, taller than the double crochets we've been doing earlier. So now we are going to chain 1 And then the pattern tells us we will be working behind this treble that we just made and make a treble into the first skipped single crochet. So remember, we skipped these two. We're going to now put a treble into the first one of those, and we're going to go behind. So what I will do, I first wrap the yarn twice around my hook, then put the hook here now behind and into that first skipped single crochet. Yarn over and pull the yarn through. We have our 4 loops on the hook, and we're doing a yarn over and going through the first 2. Yarn over, go through the second 2. Yarn over and go through the third pair of 2 loops. So as you can see now, by working in the back of that treble, we actually crossed these 2 stitches. And we have our first crossing made. And now you can go back and look at the beginning of the brackets. It tells you to skip the next 2 single crochets and then place a treble into the next one. Wrap the yarn twice around, go into that stitch, bring through the yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go through the second 2 loops, and yarn over and go through the next 2 loops. Chain 1, and then work a treble behind the treble we made into the first of the 2 skipped stitches. So we're working here in the back, through the first 2, through the second 2, and through the last 2. So straighten it up. We can see how we now have 2 crossed trebles. And then just keep repeating this across. I'll do it one more time. So we do 2 loops around our hook, go skipping 2 and going into the next, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go through the second 2 loops, and yarn over, last 2 loops. Chain 1, wrap the yarn twice around your hook, work in the back, tilt your work a little bit towards you so that you get to see what's happening here in the back. You go into the first of the skipped stitches, bring through the yarn, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, go through the second 2 loops, and yarn over and go through the last 2 loops. So there you go, there you have the repetition. So let's now just keep repeating this across. It tells us to repeat it across all the way to the end of the row. So I will meet you there. I'm going to work my last treble crossings here in these very last 3 stitches on my row. So I'm going into the last stitch here with this first of my last trebles, and I'm going to chain 1, do a treble back here in that first of the skipped stitches, go through the first 2, second 2, and last 2. And now when I'm here at this very end, the pattern tells me to put a double crochet into this same single crochet that my second to last treble was working to. So just go into that same single crochet and work a double crochet here. So that finishes off our crossing row 2 of the cross stitch texture, and I am turning around, ready to work row 3, the last row in our stripe 9. So here I am, chain 1, and then I'm going to work a single crochet in this first double crochet I have here, and then the pattern tells me to work a single in each treble and in each chain space across. So take a closer look here now. We have a treble, so I'll work into the treble. Then there is the chain space. So work into the chain space that is right on top of where the stitches are crossing. Then you have a treble, and then you have another treble, and then you have a chain space, and then you have a treble, treble, and chain space. So make sure you work into every single stitch and chain space across, and I will meet you again at the end of the row. Okay, so I'm at the end of row 3. I worked in the chain space and I'm working a single into that treble, and then remember to work your last single here at the top of this chain 3 that you had at the beginning of previous row. So here, working my last single crochet, and then the pattern tells me to fasten off and pull out your hook and flip it over to the right side, and you can admire this last stripe with our crossed treble stitches. We have now finished also stripe 9, and before we're all done, I'm also again going to grab my tape measure. You can see at the top it's supposed to measure 1.25 inches. So let's just make sure. Here we have this section, and I have 1 inch there, and then I have the quarter mark right where I start the stripe. So it's all good to go. We are good, and we are done with stripe 9. With stripes 7, 8, and 9, you learned how to create different designs by simply changing the order of the most basic crochet stitches. I hope you're enjoying exploring these patterns. Isn't it exciting to see your collection of stripes start to stack up? I look forward to seeing you in about a month in our next installment of the Annie's Crochet Stripe Afghan Club, where we will be making stripes 10, 11, and 12. You will learn how to create a useful rib design and learn how to make a cute bead stitch stripe. And then finish up by making a super easy double crochet lace texture. These stripes are so fun and great to have in your toolbox. I can't wait to show you. Until next time, happy crocheting!